So I'm going to be speaking about managing the L&D function. And, there's something I always say, and that is humility in leadership. So I'm going to be speaking about managing it as a team. Yes, the leader is there, but also the other people are also part of managing the L&D function. And this is the way we are going to flow. So just to let you know, so at some point, these slides will be shared with you. Okay. So this L&D function is the function that, is responsible or has the mandate to, empower employees' growth and development through giving them the knowledge. Okay, sorry about that. So we empower employees through, giving them the right knowledge, skills, and capabilities to drive business performance. And it is in the current and the future. And at some point in this discussion, I'm going to be talking about balancing the stability and also the dynamism required, because as an organization, there are certain things that you will keep going the way it is while you also begin to look into the future. So this L&D function we're talking about has continued to evolve. In those days, it used to be you provide skills development and compliance training, and then you now go and say, oh, I've done so well. When there is a training, you consult vendors, they will prepare everything and they will send to you, or they schedule it. In fact, some time in the past, people almost outsource the whole program. The vendor puts everything together, runs it, and then comes to give you a report that he has done it. So we supported the closing of gaps, and we continue to do that, and also building improvement plans, develop content. Then we reported learning and the learning covered and the learning implemented. And also we provided the platforms and tools for learning. Now, as the function continued to evolve, from this day, what we're now looking at is a situation whereby we are consultant and partner to building organizational capabilities. So we understand the goals of the organization, identify the needs, and align the needs to the goals. So L&D today has continued to, even influence job roles. So a few weeks ago, I was working on a document, or I was working on what we call School of Metals and Mining. And for those of us that are in our industry, you will understand that the CBN is no more giving banks FX. So we need to source our FX. So it means that we need to go to those industries we do not support, for industries that do export, and begin to create opportunities for us to get FX from them. So I was working on the School of Metals and Mining. And from that work, when I was doing the curriculum, something came up. So the guys that are already in that space, it then means that we need to enhance their job roles, because their job roles are now changing. And it happens every time in the space. However, if you are not very much aware, you will not know how much that L&D is contributing in enhancing people's job roles. So also, this function today builds and manages talent pipeline and database. Now, I've always argued that L&D is the umbrella that makes talent management not to be beaten by the rain. Otherwise, it will just sit there. So if you have a very good system, a system that tracks learning and all the activities of learning, and if it is also connected to the Active Directory, whenever anybody needs anything on any talent, any information on any talent, the person will come to L&D. So we need, as L&D, to understand the critical role we play in the current and the future performance of the organization. Today, we're also not just creating programs. We're also creating self-directed learning paths for skills development, and we champion digital learning and promote social learning through technology. These are the things that are happening, but they will continue to happen. New things will come up, but again, you need to almost live the life of a scavenger to understand that there are so many opportunities for you to provide learning to the organization you serve. Okay, so, talking about balancing stability and dynamism, there are certain things in an organization you can hold constant, but as an L&D team, you must be able to demonstrate that capability of also being dynamic, looking into the future, knowing, for instance, if you work in the space where I work with UBA, you understand that there are so many things you need to put into consideration while even running the L&D space. I have some people that are in different time zones, and I need to make sure that people come to and network across the UBA universe. So what happens? So I need to look at how, maybe we deploy training, what time the training starts in a day, the number of hours that we can go. I need to also understand there are certain jurisdictions that will not allow me to bring people into class on Saturdays unless they opt for it. So how do I start managing that process? So that is being dynamic, But again, we need to also understand that people must come to class. There's a policy, there are guidelines around learning. So I need to, juggle both to make sure that we're also delivering, learning. So, and it comes in various ways. So in terms of your strategy, your people, the structure, the process, and even the technology that you use to deploy learning. So to be able to manage the stability and dynamism, you need to look at your strategy. So you need to assess the capability requirements and create a vision to meet them. Align your learning priorities, budgets, and resources to also address those needs. Review the KPIs and create the improvement plans. So these are the things you do along, the strategy area. For people, you continue to build internal capabilities, plan resources, build capability as the business demands, and also ensure that you cultivate the culture of dynamism. So it is important that we take note of this. So how is your structure going to look like, or how are you structured to deliver? You must, as an L&D team, establish internal pool of resources and also building the governance, the right governance with the accountabilities. You must build internal and external networks to support learning initiatives and programs. Then you need to set up, at some point when we're going to talk about stakeholders and how you manage stakeholders, we will also come back to this. Okay. Please hold. Sorry. Okay. So how are your processes being driven? You must be continuously automating your process. Very, very important. You must adopt and adapt. I'll give you an example. A few months ago, in my space, we came up with what we call the UBA Academy Learning Hub. It's a knowledge management hub, so to speak. So because from my days in Diamond Bank, I've come up with 3 things I do with knowledge management. 1, for me to be able to deploy knowledge management, I need to have a dump. Then when I have that dump, I'll classify and then codify. So the time I codify, it is built in as a proper e-learning program in our space. So, and typically I had colleagues who were actually running around. They said they wanted to build a knowledge management system. They want to build a platform and stuff like that. And I looked at MS Teams. MS Teams gives me that capability. So why am I going to bother myself going through budget approval, going through all sorts and stuff like that. And what did I do? With my team, we created the UBA Academy Learning Hub, classified the program. So it became our dump. And from there, we're actually building the courses that are going to the LMS. From there, we give people that come for the program access into that space so they continue to learn. From there, we're able to even deploy on demand. If, for instance, you need to look at the material that we use for a particular course. From there, we are no more attaching documents. We just send you the link. As far as you are in the UBA ecosystem, you will have access to it. So you can see what we have done with what we have. So we continuously will continue to adapt, continue to adopt new technologies. Data is very important, and it's not just about gathering the data. You must have to analyze your data. I'll give you an example. So sometimes you go into a meeting, and it's happened to me over and over. And people say, oh, people can't do this, they can't do that. And somebody says, oh, they've not been trained. And sometimes even the people that have gone through the training will tell you that they've not been through the training, especially in this day of digital learning. It's becoming a problem for people to accept that because they're going through a session like we're doing and that they've gone on training. So people are now looking at, oh, can we do physical training? But as an L&D specialist, you need to understand what digital learning has done to us in terms of deploying training in scope, with speed, and the spread. If you work in a large organization like mine. Now, so it has also helped us. So we do not spend 70% of our time, instead of thinking about developing the curriculum, developing the content, and planning the sessions, we spend 70% of our time doing logistics, going through approvals and stuff like that. And I don't think that those things, help us. So, like I said, so you go into a meeting and somebody says, oh, we've not trained our people and stuff like that. So it's amazing when you have the right data. And you can actually push out the data and say, you know what, I trained so number of people, and this was the rating of the learners. And when they go back, their supervisors have rated them. These are the things that the supervisors said that these people can now do. And, so people will keep quiet. You use data to shut people up, so that people, because, we're doing a thankless job, so to speak. It is only when things go wrong that somebody remembers, oh, L&D, But again, we need to also be at that point whereby we are taking the lead. So we need to also own the decision that we take. Even if it goes wrong, yes, it is our decision as the L&D expert. And this is why it went wrong. And these are the corrective action points. That's the way to lead, your L&D function. In terms of technology, we need to continue to maintain dashboards for plans and delivery, because these dashboards actually tell the story. So as an L&D specialist or as an L&D manager, you must build your dashboard. One-page dashboard that tells the story. So you must make sure that you standardize your content. So the systems, I now talked about the UBA Academy Learning Hub. We also have our LMS. So these are systems that we use. So we make sure that they are standardized and these are across the group. So I'll tell you something, the content that we push in now, it must come in at least 2 languages. So before I drop an LMS, any content in the LMS, it must have the English and the French version, because I'm taking particular note of the environment that I serve. Then you must, as an L&D team, integrate your systems into the enterprise platforms and apps. Now, for instance, I do not need to be looking for staff lists. I do not need to be looking for anything, because my LMS is integrated with the Active Directory. So these things are there so that it does not sit alone, because when your system sits alone, then it means that you will be limited as to what the capabilities of that system. So if you're building a new system, make sure that that system can be integrated with the existing enterprise system that you use. So you do not need to be going about trying to upload something that ordinarily would have pulled automatically. So we need to also build database analytics and insights to enhance decision making. After every program, you know, programs are a bit different from courses. Courses are part of program. I don't know, in my space, what we do is you have modules as part of courses, and then you have courses as part of programs. Programs are a little bit longer to deliver. So for instance, in my space, what I do now is that in each area, specialist area, I have what I call accelerated development program. So that program is longer. None of them is less than 6 months. And then I have courses inside those, inside the program. So that way, it makes it easy for us to also manage. So at the end of it, you are certified. If it's branch manager, you're certified branch manager, and so to speak. Then you need to also partner with learning providers to provide best-in-class learning. It's very important. You cannot do it alone. You must continue to innovate, create cutting-edge learning initiatives. So this is important for us as L&D people to actually look at these things and imbibe them and put them as part of our work. So how is an L&D team structured? You know, I don't know how it works for you, but this has worked for me, and it will continue to work for me. So the L&D team that I built, or the L&D department or whatever academy, is made up of the various teams. So I usually have the specialized skills and job families management. Some people call it schools. I also have the strategy and projects, and then have learning technologies. That is the way I run. So as the head of the place, I provide strategic leadership or direction to the team and make sure that the team is delivering consistent value. Then for the learning strategy and projects team, this is like my brain. This is where the learning strategies are developed. This is where we do research and development. And this is also where we create initiatives and also manage, you know, the delivery of those initiatives. For the specialized skills and job families, so in my space today, I call them specialized schools. Now, so it is important, if you're creating your specialized school, always understand that there is the core of the business. That core of the business would have its own school. So I'll give you an example. If you are in banking, the core of the business will be, and for us, we call it the core business school. So here you have sales, operations, credit risk management, and treasury inside the core of our business. So, and that way, so all these areas, the sales faculty, the operations faculty, the treasury faculty, the credit faculty, are all part of the core business school. So it is important that we, you know, understand, you know, some of these things. Then you have your leadership. Also make sure that you have strategic support. What you call back office, I do not call back office. I call them strategic support. You know, so because that's what they provide. You know, they're not back office people. They need to understand the business, and they need to help the business to drive the business. Then also make sure that you look at your leadership. Leadership at all levels is either you're leading self, you're leading teams, or you're leading the enterprise. So make sure people do not know that, you know, self-leadership is actually the beginning of leadership. So those things we take for granted, emotional intelligence and all the rest of them, are critical to leadership. If you miss them at the foundational level, you will struggle when you get to the enterprise, because you will be creating more problems for the organization than anything. Also make sure that you have your technology, the backbone people that help you to provide, to run your processes, to provide service to the customers. Also make sure that they have a school, digital and tech. Also make sure that they have a school, and scan your system and make sure that you incorporate, every, area. Governance, compliance, those are very critical. Then I also have the learning technologies team. This learning technologies team handles everything that has to do with the platform that I use. It handles everything that has to do with my design, the data analytics, knowledge management, and even the operations. This is where my data sits. This learning technologies team is one team that makes me so proud, because if I do not have data, I do not have any business sitting in as head of L&D. It's data that gives me the insights, it tells the story, and it also helps to project what we are doing as an L&D team. Okay, so how do we deploy our programs or even our initiatives? It lies in the way we design, develop, and deploy those programs. And you would hear me always go back to, you must have to understand the mandate. And for you to understand the mandate, you must have to understand the business. If you do not understand the business, you will struggle. So you understand the mandate, the need, and the objective. Engagement is very, very important. So you need to engage the business leads and subject matter experts. Then you can now design your curriculum and the plan you want to develop, you want to deploy, the way you want to deploy, and also the delivery options. Very important. A program, so you need to select your faculty, whether internal faculty or vendor or consultant. So there will be a vendor selection. For us, the vendor selection is very, very important. In my space, for you to hold a vendor selection, you must have to have the subject matter experts from the business, depending on the line of what type of program it is. You must have to have the quality insurance people in that space, even the process insurance. So you have internal control. You even have the guys, the vendor management who do the negotiation. They are part of the process. And for every vendor selection exercise you want to run, you should have at least 3 vendors, distinct vendors, to come for the vendor selection. And you'll be measured based on the quality of content, the quality of faculty, the pedigree of the faculty, and then your ability to also be bilingual. Because in UBA today, we have 2 major languages, though we have Portuguese, but we have 2 more of French and English. So when you're coming to work with me, number one, you must be able to demonstrate that you can deploy that program in English and French. And please, maybe there are consultants that will be in this room. Do not come and give me another pricing for French, because we will not take it. So there are certain standards we've put. So if you're ready to work with us, you must have to have that capability. And when you finish the vendor selection, then you can go for your approval to implement, and then you deploy the program, whether it is facilitator-led or it is self-led. That's an e-learning course. Now, I'll give you one trick, what we do in my space today. So every program is recorded, and the learning materials are properly put in the Academy Learning Hub. So if, for instance, you are supposed to come for that program and you did not come for that program, now you will go and listen to it. You will go through the assessment. We'll call it validation of learning, and then you'll be issued a certificate. What am I trying to do there? Number one, I'm pushing for discipline. If I invite you for a training program, you must attend the program unless it is something and you must have an approval not to be there. And I'm not ready to be chasing you everywhere. Two is that you can go through, because you did not, you were not part of the program, does not mean that you cannot have access to learning. So we'll give you that learning and you go through the assessment to make sure that you're, there's a validation that you have learned. Then when we finish our programs, please, as L&D people, let us look at the post-program actions and implement them. Because most times what happens is that when people finish the program, they go into the business and the business priorities will take them over and nobody remembers again. And there are so many ways you can actually implement post-program actions, including what we call echoes from the classroom. So you know the people that came for the program. So what you can do is once in a while, those areas that are topical or those things that resonated well in the class, you will send them bits on it. And then they would also need to make presentations to their units for those that didn't come for that program. And if there are groups, if there are projects that are created, please let's monitor them to make sure that people do their projects well. Sometimes when you start talking like this, people think that you're a headmaster. I had a session for senior people, and that was 3 Saturdays ago or so. And when we finished, and it was held by an external person. They were asking for their certificates. And I told them, I said, no, you cannot have your certificates now until you do your assessment. Go to the LMS, do your assessment, and download your certificate. So that is it. It's a proof that, yes, I went through this program, I learned from this program, and this is my certificate. All right. So what are the things that an L&D function must track, to make sure that they are effective and they are making impact in the organization? One is your learning strategy effectiveness. How effective is your learning? And you can track that using your data. So you have deployed a program and it is running online, or it is an e-learning course. How do you make sure that that program, people are using what they learned, or even that people learned? And you can do that by checking with the business. So in our space, we do, I'll speak about them, how you evaluate impact of learning. So you go back to the business, to the supervisors and say, how is it going? Has this impacted? Are there changes in behavior? And then you can now go to, maybe if it is product knowledge, you can go to the product people and say, what has changed since from this period to this period? Do we have more sales, or do we have more drop sales and stuff like that? Those are the things that you need to check to make sure that your learning strategy is effective. Budget utilization is very important. I don't know what your KPI is like, but I also have a KPI that makes me very conscious of how I utilize my budget, and that is I must meet 30% cost management. So I get very creative. When I'm negotiating, I get very creative, even in deploying programs and stuff like that. Not that I'm cutting costs. I will not cut costs, but I manage the cost. So it's important that we take a look at that. So let me speak to how you evaluate impact of training. So what we have done in my space is that we have, in this era of customer experience, we've adopted some things from customer experience. So for us, it's learning experience, what they call post-training evaluation. No, we call it, and we actually structure it in such a way that it tells us how the learner has experienced training. Because it is not just about somebody coming to training, it's what kind of experience does it leave with the learner. So we do that, and then we will go to the supervisor 3 months down the line 3 to 6 months, we check whether there's been a change in behavior. Very, very important, especially for those key programs that are dealing with leadership, dealing with business, core business. We go back and check. And then at the end of the year, we'll work with the guys in finance to make sure there's return on investment. So that's a longer one, and there are so many things that come into it. So return on investment is more of the money you spend, did it get value? Also, your tech and digital adoption must be tracked. So I remember before the pandemic, even MS Teams was so low on adoption, so low. I won't give you the numbers, but it's actually very bad. So what did we do? We started teaching people how to use it. And we rolled away the carpet for interaction, physical interaction. Meetings were now deployed, online, training online, so many things were online. And I don't know how the finance people see it, but the gains made from during that pandemic, the savings on operational costs is amazing. So today, I wonder why some organizations are still resisting the fact that people should work from home or work from anywhere. Because the pandemic wasn't so bad for people in terms of profitability, actually. So, but it's okay. But as an L&D team, please make sure that you track your digital adoption. It is important so that you can make a case for digital learning. You should be able to make a case for digital learning. Otherwise, you will go back to the world where you are spending 70% of your time on hotel accommodation, flights, whatever, and all the rest of them. And you cannot win with total physical training anymore. You can't. Even traveling around now, so you fly your people from wherever to wherever, the delayed flight everywhere, and it's also global because there's been a challenge in the aviation industry globally. So you can't be flying people around. Or if you're in Nigeria, traveling by road is also a challenge. Okay, you have a learning hub in Port Harcourt. Somebody from Aba or somebody from Umuahia will come to do the training. The roads are bad. They can be waylaid on the road, kidnapped. Is that what you're going to go through? So what you need to do with digital learning is to continue to push for the discipline of the learner. That's where the challenge is. So that the person knows that I am learning, and even though nobody is seeing me, or even if they're seeing you on camera, they don't know what you're doing, that I must learn. Also, one other place that you need to track for L&D is that of statutory and regulatory. It is important. Statutory could be your ITF. Make sure that your ITF, Industrial Training Fund, returns are up to date. And remember that when you get your reimbursable, it's also good. You brag with it, because if you operate a balanced scorecard, it should go into your financial aspect. You should go into your financial and you show that, yes, last year I brought in 100 million for the institution. ITF returns. And these things would go straight to profitability. So the finance people will always love it. Now, in terms of regulatory, there are certain things that you must have to do, courses that you must take as one person, as an organization. I don't know about your industry where you are, but in the financial industry, if one staff misses the regulatory courses, is a problem, serious problem. And also, note what the regulators are tracking. So you have NDIC, you have CBN, you have SEC. we need to be mindful of what they're tracking. Sustainability is a big, big thing. For those of us that are in the multinational environment, we don't need to tell you about it. So sustainability is a big thing. So please, let's educate ourselves about the requirements, sustainability requirements, the regulatory requirements, and statutory requirements, so that we can let the organization be, be compliant with that. Okay, so we have stakeholders. Like I said, you can't do it alone, but you need to identify your stakeholders. From the internal side, you have the internal faculty, who are the people that help you create content, create curriculum, create content, and also facilitate. And then you have the business leaders. The business leaders include management. So you need to understand the way the organization is going, engage management to understand, to make sure that you understand the goals, the strategies. You come to the business, the people that own the people that you're training, and also make sure that they also identify areas that the people need to be trained on. And when you finish the training, you go back to them to check with them. Now, I'll tell you that there's something we've done in our programs now. There's what we call supervisor check-in. So your people are coming for training. We'll send a link to you. You can check in anytime. Just log in and see how your people are doing in the training. It is important. What I'm trying to do is to push that everybody must be involved in the learning of everybody, or the learning of each other. Internal faculty, very, very important. If you do not have an internal faculty, go and create one today. And please give them the recognition. You know why? Because for any organization that is what is sought, over 50% of your programs should be delivered by internal faculty. Nobody can tell your story except you. You are in a better position to tell your story. Are you talking about the culture? Are you talking about the processes, the policies? Who will teach people those things? It cannot be an external vendor. Are you talking about the products, the services, the way we do things? Nobody will do that except you, your internal faculty. My internal faculty, I'm so proud of my internal faculty in my space today. They deliver, not only that they deliver, they create curriculum, content, and deliver over 70% of my programs today. And my internal faculty, I also have members of the board in my internal faculty. So it is important that you create those things and always recognize them. Please, October 5 is World Teachers Day. So if you have an internal faculty, try and recognize them on that day, even if it means sending them a card. Okay. So you need to also understand that you have regulators. They are also part of the people you interact with. It's very important that you have them. Sometimes you can have them come and even facilitate sessions or help you to build content. So you need to understand that, and you cannot afford, in my space, you cannot afford to mess with your regulators. It is suicidal. So other people that are stakeholders include the people that sell maybe applications, that sell things to us, your original equipment manufacturers. They're supposed to be part of you, and there are programs that they need to deliver to you. So it's not about dropping the equipment or connecting us to whatever app it is, but you need to teach our people how to use it and how to support it, because you have your IT teams. And then when there is an upgrade, they need to come back to also do an upgrade. Also look out for the certifications for those areas so that your people can have those. We also have business schools and professional institutes that we also liaise with. Very important, because The professional institutes are very important, especially in certain areas of specialization. In banking, so we have the CIBN in Nigeria, and we have ICANN and all the rest of them. So we partner with all of them. They also have established curriculum. So if you partner with them, you can borrow from their curriculum and begin to deliver them in your space. We also have learning experience providers. So the Go ones of this world, we have Udemy and all the rest of them, even LinkedIn Learning. So they are also there. And then we also partner with our vendors, external vendors, consultants, and we do not take them for granted. They are part of our stakeholders, and we manage them, very well. So before we take questions, I'll just leave you with this word. Said, learning is a journey, it is not a destination, so you continue to learn. So as professionals in the learning space, you must have to keep learning. And some of the things you need to keep working on include business acumen and your financials. It's very important. If you don't understand the numbers, you will struggle. If you do not have business acumen, you will not understand the business that you're supposed to provide learning for. Data and analytics, very important. You need to also continue to work on your curriculum and content development, very important. In today's world, is either you're doing design or you're creating content, including content on social media. Measurement and evaluation, sometimes we do not take that seriously in our space. We do not know that this is actually, when you build capability in measurement and evaluation, for those of you that studied education, you understand that measurement, evaluation, and evaluation is where all those things we talk about evaluating impact, hang on. Research and development, very important. Interpersonal relations, very important. Creativity and innovation, very, very key. You cannot play in this space today, in the learning and development space, if you're not creative, enough. If you cannot innovate, you cannot play in this space. So these are my last words, and we can take questions.